Hey guys, welcome to Check Your Leader TV. Today we're going to have a game of Baroque. In my last video I went through an introduction to Baroque. I recommend if you've never played Baroque before or this is the first time you've heard about the rules, I recommend you go and have a look at that video. I'll link it in the description below so you can quickly get there and have a look at it. It goes for about 40 minutes. But other than that, if you just want to see how a game of Baroque is played, that's what I'm about to do today. I'm just going to play a solo game, just so people can have a look at how the game is played, and it might give them some idea whether or not it's the kind of thing that they want to look into. I'd just like to point out before we start that invariably I will probably make mistakes in relation to the rules. If you pick up a mistake, please pop it in the comment section below. That helps not just me, but everybody who's watching this. I also want to thank Nathan Vincent from Elite Miniatures Australia, who was kind enough to answer some questions that I had put to him in relation to the rules that I needed clarification on. So without further ado, let's crack on. Essentially, we have an English Civil War battle here. Royalists over there on your right, and over the left here we have parliamentarian forces. I'll just go through the troops now, and you can see what we've got. Initially here, what we have is 2 units of Ritters in mass. So they're formed up as one solid unit. We have a unit of Musketeers and a unit of Cuirassiers, and they're all commanded by an expert general. In the center, we have 1, 2, and on the other side of those cannon, a 3rd unit of pike and shot. In between the pike and shot, we have 2 medium artillery pieces, and directly to the rear of the guns, we have some ill-equipped town militia. They're classed as warband. And then far over on the parliamentarian left, we have 3 units of trotters, Ironsides, again commanded by an expert general, and a unit of musketeers. And I should point out that the general in the center, also for the parliamentarians, is expert. So all the parliamentarian generals are experts. So let's have a look now at the royalist forces. Before I go on, I should point out I'm using the lists out of the actual Baroque rulebook for royalists and parliamentarians, but I have made some slight alterations. For example, well, as I go through, you'll see. For the royalists, we have a unit of dragoons. We have a unit of musketeers with attached regimental artillery. Now, in the English Civil War, there's no option to attach regimental artillery, but I've done it for this game because I just wanted to. Then we have 2 units of gallopers, and those 4 units are under the command of a charismatic leader, Prince Rupert of the Rhine. Next, in the centre command, commanded by a reliable general, we have at the front 3 units of pike and musket, 2 of which are classed as Cornish pike, but they're not Cornish, they're just veterans. But we're using the Cornish stats for those chaps. And then the King's Lifeguard of foot. And then behind them, 2 units of also pike and musket. They also have a Class C artillery piece attached to them as well. And on the far right, next to the King's Lifeguard, we have a medium gun. Finally, far over to the right, King Charles's command. Obviously, King Charles isn't commanding, but one of his minions. We have a unit of musketeers, the King's Lifeguard, and a unit of horse. The King's Lifeguard are classed as gallopers, and the unit of horse are classed as trotters. Rupert's cavalry here are classed as gallopers. They're cavaliers. Okay. Now, I've gone with totally random terrain. I've just laid it out just to make an interesting battlefield. What we have is some, just for the sake of eye candy, they're just some ploughed fields over there, but they have no real significance to the battle. There's a hedge line in front of the royalist foot there, and there's a wood on the royalist left, surrounded by a hedge. And then finally, over to the left, we have on the outskirts, we're just on the outskirts of a little English village in the Midlands, and there is a wall around those fields there. So they're stone walls, and same on the far left of the parliamentarian line. More stone walls, more woods. Essentially, what you see is pretty much what you get. The parliamentarians have the advantage of their guns being behind linear obstacles. Essentially, the parliamentarian force totals about 840 odd points, and the royalists are about 910 points. I've given the royalists a slight advantage in points because the royalists are attacking. In this scenario, the royalists can win automatically if they can advance and capture both of those guns, and also sack the camp that the parliamentarian forces have here. So that's now the table set. Because I'm playing solo, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to randomly roll to see which commands are going to activate. 1, 2 will be the right-hand command, 3, 4 the center, 5, 6 the left, and that'll be for both sides. So if I roll for the, well, let's just do it. The parliamentarians first, okay? So 1, 2 is going to be the right command, 3, 4 the center, 5, 6 the left. Okay, so the parliamentarians are going to attempt to activate their center command first, and the royalists, for their part, will attempt activate their right command. So over yonder. So we've got a situation. We've got 2 expert commanders attempting to activate, and so we will roll for them now. So we'll roll for King Charles's command first. And he's rolled a 6. Being expert, they can re-roll their dice. Center command. They've rolled a 5. They're going to re-roll the 1, hoping to get better than a 3. Okay, so they're up to 7. Charles's command will re-roll the 1. Okay, so the first command to activate will be King Charles's command, the royalist right. Now what I've done is I'm also going to go with a fixed BU of 10 centimeters. The frontage is 18 centimeters for all my units. Half of that is 9. I'm just going to round it up to 10, because even if I do, say, 3 turns, it's only a net increase of 3 centimeters. I don't think it really makes that much, but we'll see. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to activate these chaps here. It's their first turn. We don't need to roll any dice or anything like that. We simply move 10 centimeters. It's just good going, so there's no effect on them at all. And so for their first move, they go forward 10 centimeters. They're going to attempt to move again. So their discipline is B. Let's see how they go. Okay, 1 is a fail. So they move, but they are disordered at the end of that move. So they will go forward 10 centimeters. And
now, as per the rule, what you're supposed to do is you're supposed to move your second move and then do the discipline roll. Obviously, this is so that you don't have a situation where you go, I'm going to move forward, discover that you failed the roll, and then only move forward a centimetre as opposed to full 10. But I'm playing solo, it doesn't matter. And after moving the musketeers, the next thing we do is we move forward with the King's Lifeguard, and then we move the other horse unit, the trotters, up behind them. They move 2 BU, which is 20 centimeters, and then finally we move the general up.
so that ends the move of the royalist right. Now we dice to see who goes next. So we're going to attempt to activate the parliamentarian left and the royalist centre. So we'll go with the parliamentarians first. That's an expert general, so he can re-roll his 2 dice, and he also adds +3. Well, he's probably not going to want to re-roll any of them. This chap's just reliable, so he adds a +2. 8 versus 10, even with a +2, it's not enough. He can't re-roll because he's just reliable. The expert beats him just on a neat roll, so that means... Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is going to move these musketeers through this rough ground. Rough ground has no effect on targeters or T-class troops, shooters. I just remember T, I just think targeters. So that will get them to this point here. They're going to want to move a second time. So we will, their morale class, sorry, discipline class B, so they got 4+ to get to move a second time. And they get it, so they go another 10. You can have echelon movement or diagonal movement in Baroque. So they can move slightly, they can move at a 45-degree angle as they go forward. They're going to attempt to move again because they want to get to the edge of this wall here. So it's normally a 4, but this is their second march move, so now they need a 5 or better, and they don't get it. They do move up, but they are disordered, so that's where they've got to. The cavalry, they're going to advance directly, well, they're going to advance forward 2 moves, or sorry, just 1 move, which will be for them 20 centimeters. Okay, so that command has concluded its movement. Now we get dice to see which command goes next. Okay, so 1, 2, 3 to the center, 4, 5, 6, it's the right. Okay, so the center command is going to attempt 1, 2, 3 center, 4, 5, 6 left. Okay, so both center commands are going to dice off. Again, the parliamentarians are classed as expert and the royalists are just reliable. We'll do the royalists first. Okay, that's a pretty ordinary roll, and they can't re-roll anything. Okay, yes, okay. So the the parliamentarian centre is going to now activate. So the parliamentarian centre command at this point, all they would want to do is shoot. The maximum range of these Art B medium guns is 40 centimeters, so they're out of range, so there's no firing to be done. There's no movement they want to do at this stage, so they're not going to do anything. So we now roll again for the royalists. 1, 2, 3, it'll be their centre command. 4, 5, 6. Okay, it's the 2 flank commands that are going to activate. So Prince Rupert's command will activate, as will this command here, will attempt to anyway. So Prince Rupert is charismatic, so he's going to add, off the top of my head, I think it's charismatic commanders add a +4 and experts +3. So +4 to Rupert and +3 to the parliamentarian. Okay, the parliamentarian is going to sit on that at the moment. Rupert is going to re-roll both those dice. It does him no good. So the parliamentarians on the right will now activate. Again, we're going to start with the musketeers. They're going to move 10 centimeters. This point here, they're going to attempt to move a second time. They're class B, so they need a 4+, and they achieve that. So they go again. They're going to attempt to move again up to that hedge line there. This time they need a 5+. They move, but they are disordered. Next, they are going to move the Ritters. Now they, yep, it's 20 centimeters is their movement. That gets them to there. Now the cuirasses are interesting. They also move 2, but they're classed as slow. Now being slow, that just means that if they try to move a second time, there's a -1 on their discipline test. But they're not going to attempt to move a second time. They're simply going to move 1 move forward. Carrying these heavy horsemen, the horses don't like it. They tend to get blown quicker. So, okay, that just leaves the parliamentarians now. They're free to move in any order they want because the royalists now, because the parliamentarians have all moved. So the royalists can pick whichever one they want to go with first. They're going to go with, I think we'll go with the centre command now. Okay, so the central command, we rolled their dice. There were no double 1s or double 6s. They've all just, every unit within the central command has moved 1 BU. Crossing the hedge causes the units to become disordered, so they can't move or attempt to move a second time. So they've simply crossed the hedge and they're now disordered. So that leaves us just now with Prince Rupert of the Rhine's command. He is charismatic. No doubles, no double 1s, so he's not going to drop. So now we just conduct their movement. So the musketeers have moved once with their attached regimental artillery. They're going to attempt to move a second time. They are class B, and so they pass. So they will move again. So 10 centimeters straight forward. The dragoons have moved 1 move forward. They're going to move a second time into difficult ground, which is the woods. Now they are class B. Dragoons would normally move movement of 2 basic units or Baroque units, but they're now entering difficult ground, so that's reduced to 1. But they're not disordered by the terrain, but they do have to roll to see if they can do a second move unaffected without falling into disorder. So again, their morale class is, discipline class is B. Okay, so they've moved, but they've failed. So they'll move 1 BU and then they'll be disordered. So all that leaves now is the Cavaliers. They'll advance 1 move each, and that will end the turn. So that's the end of the first full turn playthrough. Every command has been activated. Every unit that wants to be activated has done so. And so now we're going to go on into the second complete turn. So this is the view from the royalist perspective. And so now we roll to see which command will activate or attempt to activate. So for the royalists, again, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so Prince Rupert's going to attempt to activate again. For the parliamentarians, let's see what they're about. Again, it'll be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so opposite flanks, basically. So now it's a matter of rolling to see who actually will have the initiative. Rupert is adding +4 because he is charismatic, and we're adding +3 here because this fellow here is expert. Okay, so we're going to have the parliamentarians as red. Okay, so Rupert has rolled 3 +4 takes him up to a grand total of 7, and the parliamentarian is 7 +3, that's up to 10. So Rupert's going to re-roll his dice. He's going to re-roll both of them. Okay. So he's got 9 +4. That's a grand total of 13. The parliamentarian's going to re-roll his as well. Okay, it's not enough. So Rupert has the initiative. Now, if at the conclusion of the rolls for initiative, if you take into account all the modifications for command status, you then would take into consideration the command structure. And if one side's command structure is superior to the other side's, then that side gets the initiative. But in this case, it's the command structures are the same. Of course, Rupert is classed as charismatic. Charismatic generals can forego initiative. They can pass on initiative and hand the initiative over to their opponent. In this case, Rupert's going to do that. He's going to let the parliamentarians have the initiative. Only charismatic commanders that can do this. You're only allowed to have one charismatic commander per side, and it must be the CNC. And in the case of the Royalists, Rupert is the Commander-in-Chief. Okay, footnote here. Yes, King Charles I is commanding on one of the wings, but he's only notionally commanding. King Charles I, during the English Civil War, obviously was the commander of the armies. He was the Commander-in-Chief, but he would often devolve that command, battlefield command responsibility down to a subordinate. So in this case, he's handed it over to Rupert, just in case there's any confusion there. Okay, well, with that in mind, let's move on. Now, the first thing the parliamentarians will do, well, the first thing you do in each phase is rallying. So with that in mind, these are Class B troops. They're going to attempt to rally before they do anything else. So they rally now they're Class B, so they're going to rally on a 4+. And so they do. They've rallied. So they're now back in good order. Now, the musketeers here, they could, if they want, they could fire at long range at the King's Lifeguard. Close range is 1 BU, or point blank is 1 BU. Then you have short range, which is 2 BU. And for musketeers, up to 4 BU is long range. And they can fire at long range, but they would be firing with a -2. They have a VBU of 4, which means -2. They would be they'd be firing with 2 dice. They are classed as well-trained shooters, and they would also get their first volley. And the first volley is you get to re-roll any of your dice that fail to hit. But with only 2 VBU, it's probably not worthwhile them firing at this stage. So with that in mind, they will not fire. That just takes us over to the cavalry now. Now, considering that the parliamentarians, defending here, they're in a fairly defensive mode, they're not going to do anything with the cavalry. So we now roll again for initiative. What I'm going to do from here on in, I'm just going to keep moving the troops around the table until we get to a point where we have some kind of reaction or some shooting taking place, because, it's going to get pretty boring, you just watching me throw dice and whatnot. So I'm just going to move on now, and we'll catch you when we get to a point where something's actually transpiring in the old shooty department. Okay, and so now we've reached one of those points in the game where something's going to happen. All right, so where I last left you, we then rolled for see which commands we're going to activate. It was a toss-up between the parliamentarians in the centre and the royalists on the far left, and Rupert came up trumps, and he moved his command first. With that, he reordered the dragoons in the woods, and then they advanced twice, passing their discipline tests, and they arrived at the edge of the woods. At the same time, the musketeers with the attached regimental artillery moved forward 1 turn, and the cavalry moved up. We then rolled for initiative, and it was between the royalists on the right and the parliamentarians on their right. The parliamentarians came up trumps, so they now have the initiative. And with that, they're just about to activate their troops. So the first thing that they're going to do is they're going to reorder this musketeer unit here. They're Class B, so they'll rally on reorder on a roll of 4+, and they're failed. Now, you can have what is called a forced rally. which means that if that unit has failed and this commander desperately wants them to reorder, he can do that. He can attempt to do that. The way he does that is he looks at his command status. He is classed as an expert, which is a +3, which means he gets to roll 3 dice. And if he gets a 4+, because these are B class, if he gets a 4+ on any one of those 3, they are successful. It is a forced rally. With that in mind, however, he will not be able to do anything else. If he does do the forced rally, he wouldn't be able to fire. The parliamentarian has decided he does want to fire. So with that in mind, he will forego the forced rally and simply accept the fact that he is disordered and suffer the minuses for that, and will fire at short range at the Royalist Dragoons in the woods. So now the active player declares what he wants to do. The active player, being the parliamentarians, declares that he wants to fire at the Dragoons in the woods. They're within arc, 45 degrees, and they're within range. You measure from the center of the firing unit to the nearest edge of the target. In this case, it's just over 10 centimeters, so it's going to be over 1 BU. The inactive player can declare that he wants to conduct, in this case, opportunity fire. There's a whole thing that you can react to. In this case, he's reacting to being shot at. So he declares he wants to conduct opportunity fire, which means both units, if he passes his discipline test, he can fire, and then the fire is resolved simultaneously. So, with the parliamentarians, the black dice, the red dice, and the Royalists, the black, the Royalists will roll to see if they pass their discipline test. They're Class B, so they will pass on a 4+. They do. So now, basically, both units will fire, but it will be simultaneous. So the way we resolve firing is you look at the VBU for both units. The Dragoons have a VBU of 5, so they'll get 5 dice. The Musketeers have a VBU of 4, they get 4 dice. Then we look at the pluses and the minuses. They're both firing at short range. They're both equipped with muskets, so they both get 1 additional dice. There was no movement, so there's no minuses for movement. Is the firer disordered? Yes, these guys are still disordered, so they lose 1 dice. For fire against skirmishers, light cavalry and artillery, no. For those who fire against units that are on the edge of a wood. These chaps are on the edge of a wood, so they're going to lose another dice. -1, there's no evasion, and we're not talking about artillery. It'll be first fire, so both sides will get to re-roll their dice. Okay, so we're engaging each other. So 6s are a hits and double 5s. Okay, so first of all, the Dragoons. So they've got a hit there, and they've got a 5. First fire, they re-roll their misses. And they've got another 5, so that's 2 hits that the Dragoons have inflicted on the parliamentarians. The parliamentarians, 1 hit there, re-roll the miss. A single 5 is nothing, so it's 1 hit to the parliamentarians and 2 hits inflicted by the Royalists. So there was a mistake there. That single 5 that was rolled by the Dragoons should have been re-rolled because it is a miss. So now both units must take a cohesion test. Because they've taken hits, even if they pass the cohesion test, they will take disorder, which means a second disorder causes a loss. So no matter what happens, the Musketeers here will take at least 1 loss because a disorder on top of a disorder. The Dragoons, however, we'll just have to see how it plays out for them. So now we'll go on with the cohesion test. So we now carry out the cohesion test. The cohesion test, you have to determine what the critical number is. The critical number for the Dragoons is as follows. Their VBU minus any damage, plus or minus any modifiers. So the VBU for the Dragoons is 5, minus the damage, they've got 1 hit, so that takes them down to 4. There's no general attached.
They're not in disorder, so there's nothing to worry about there. They did take fire from short range, so that's a +1, so it goes back up to 5. So their critical number is 5. If it was 6, a 6 is always a fail, and a 1 is always a pass.
Okay, so they've passed, no problem.
Now, if a unit passes the cohesion test, it takes no losses but becomes disordered. However, if the unit was already disordered before the test, it remains disordered and it suffers a permanent loss, which this could well affect our parliamentarian.
So as a consequence of all that exchange musketry for the royalists, they are now disordered, but with no permanent losses.
For the parliamentarian musketeers, their VBU is 4. They've so that's the number that we start with, 4. They've taken 2 hits, that takes them down to 2. They are disordered, that takes them down to 1. But they have taken fire from short range, so that's a +1, so that takes them to 2. So their VBU, their critical number is 2. So they need to roll a 2 or less to pass.
Because the parliamentarians have failed their test by 1, they take 1 permanent loss and they remain disordered.
Okay, so the next unit to consider for the parliamentarians are either the Ritters or the Cuirassiers. The Ritters, they're, as the name suggests, they're rather good at shooting, so they could ride up caracole. Caracoling is basically the front unit fires, it's then replaced by the rear unit, and then it fires. So you can get, assuming it passes certain tests, and it can just get some rolling fire going. But we're not going to do that. Having a look at the distance that the Royalist cavalry is away, they're probably going to just play it defensive and let the Royalists come to them. But the Cuirassiers, we will move them. They're probably going to move off to a flank. Let's see what we're going to do with them.
Okay, so they're going to do a sideways movement. So only, just to be clear on regards to sideways and oblique movement, a unit that is not disordered can use a movement action to move sideways or advance at an angle, called oblique movement. Only mounted dragoons and skirmishers can perform this move more than once in a single activation. In this case, a +1 progressive modifier is required for moving more than once and is applied. Well, they're only going to do this once, so they're going to do an oblique, a sideways movement to here.
That's all the movement for the parliamentarian right wing. I might have broken the rule a bit when I moved those musketeers earlier. Because if I remember correctly, I think I did an oblique movement and then a forward movement. Oblique movement, it has to be the last movement that musketeers or any troops other than mounted dragoons or skirmishers. But I don't think it's really made much difference. And anyway, we've picked it up now, so now you know. All right, now let's go on to activating other commands.
Okay, so the next command to activate was the Royalist right wing. The only thing that happened over there was they tried to rally the musketeers in this field here. That didn't come off for them. So rather than a forced rally, the general just ordered the troops to go forward disordered, which they can do. They can always do at least one move forward if they're disordered. And so they've done that. So the next thing to happen was we activated the Parliamentarian Central Command. The only thing that happened there was the pike and muskets on the left-hand side of the command wheeled towards the threatening Royalists on the Royalist right, and the militia foot or town militia advanced up also. We then activated the Royalist Central Command. The Cornish veteran pikemen were able to rally, and then they advanced one turn. The King's Lifeguard foot, they failed to rally, but they advanced one turn disordered. And then finally the Midlands pike and shot at the rear, they advanced up to the hedge. That just left the artillery pieces.
So with that done, the next thing that has to happen in this command, now that their movement was done and their rallying is done, they're going to fire now. The gun has advanced, and that's going to fire onto the parliamentarian horse here.
and then we'll consider what this gun over here will do. Well, let's go with this one first. Okay, so this light artillery here, firing across at these massed trotters. Okay, so it's got a VBU of 1 at this range. There's no pluses or minuses. It did move this turn, so it's going to lose 1 dice. But it does gain 1 dice for shooting at units that are in mass. So these guys are massed. Regardless, it's just going to be 1 dice. So the best he can hope for is a 6. And he's rolled a 3. So that's the firing from the artillery C taken care of. Now this B class artillery here, it's going to fire at these in the parliamentarian pike and shot that are just here. So they hit on a 6, and again the artillery's rolled a 3. So that brings turn 2 to a conclusion. So now we're going to commence turn 3, and as usual we start with dicing for initiative. As I said before, I'm just going to progress with the game at this point, and when something of note happens, I'll pause and then I'll bring you into it, and you can see what's going on. Okay, so the first command to activate was the parliamentarians on the left. They decided to do nothing. They're in a pretty good position here. The second command to activate was the royalists right, which is King Charles's command. With that, the musketeers in the fields, they passed their discipline test and reordered, and then advanced to right up to the stone wall. Then the King's Lifeguard has moved up 1 turn. At that point, they have been interrupted, and the musketeers behind the stone wall here, the parliamentarians, are going to activate and engage the King's Lifeguard with some volley fire. Okay, so the musketeers, they've got a VBU of 4. They're well-trained shooters, and this is their first volley, so they get to re-roll their misses. They get a +1 for firing at short range, because they're less than 2 BU away. So a grand total of 5 dice. Re-rolling any misses. Okay, so they've got 1, 5. So they'll re-roll these 4 dice here. Whoa, 2 6s. Only 1 5. That's 2 hits on the King's Lifeguard. Okay, so they now have to do a cohesion test. Okay, so the calculation for the King's Lifeguard, their VBU is 7. Okay, to work out the critical number, it's VBU minus the damage plus modifiers. So it's 7 minus 2 takes them down to 5. But it's a +1 because the shot came from short distance. So back up to 6. So this means they can only fail on a roll of 6. And if they pass that, then they'll just simply become disordered. Okay, so they've rolled a 4, so they've passed. So as a consequence of that fire, they've taken no permanent losses, but they are disordered. Okay, so that's the situation for them at the moment. The King's command will continue to do what it does now. So what's going to happen is the trotters at the rear are going to move up, and the King is going to attach himself. Well, not the King, his general will attach himself to the Lifeguard. Right, so let's just do that movement and then move on to the next command. So those trotters have moved up. Okay, so let's move on. Okay, so the Royalist Centre command activated. Again, the King's Lifeguard of foot failed to reorder. They attempted a forced rally and they failed that as well. So they're just sitting there disordered. They didn't advance and they're just in a disordered state. The rest of the veteran pikemen advanced, and the Midlands pike and shot, they crossed the hedge and are consequently disordered because of that. The parliamentarians on the right, they activated, they rallied their musketeers over here. Again, they had to do a forced rally, so that's all they did, they just simply rallied. Then Rupert's command activated. The dragoons in the woods rallied and fired, but achieved nothing. The musketeers then advanced up to the edge of this copse of trees here, and they fired, and they caused simply disorder on the Parliamentarian musketeers. This is where it gets interesting. Rupert's cavalry moved up one move. On the second attempt, they charged the Parliamentarian horse. They failed their discipline test, so they've gone in disordered, but Rupert has attached himself to them. The Parliamentarians, for their part, the two horses passed the discipline test and they countercharged. So now I'm just going to quickly mention what point-blank pistols mean in this game. Essentially, just prior to contact, in hand-to-hand, troops that are armed with point-blank pistols, we're normally talking about trotters and ritters, they get to throw 3 dice. It's a one-off. Once it's done, that's it for the game. They only get to use it once, and they might add or minus to those 3 dice, and they might cause permanent losses or disruptions. So the horse are classed as ritters, and they have point-blank pistol. They roll 3 dice. We've done that. They've rolled a 5, 3, and a 1, so no effect at all. So once the point-blank pistol fire has been resolved, we go into the melee. Looking at the this unit here, they're ritters, so they have a VBU of 5 and an impetus of 1, so that gives them a total of 6, and they are massed. Now, because they're a massed unit, they get another 2 dice, so that takes them up to a grand total of 8. Rupert's cavalry, they have a VBU of 6 and an impetus of 4, so that takes them up to 10. They lose 1 because they are disordered. Well, I should add, the Royalists also get another 1 dice because they have the general attached. So because Rupert's there, they get another 1. So they're back up to 10. So it's going to be 10 versus 8. Okay, so the Royalists will be the black dice. Okay, so there's 1 hit, and there's a single 5, and there's a double 5 for the Royalists, and everything else is a miss. That was a pretty ordinary round of melee for both those units. They're feeling a little bit lacklustered. So it's 1 hit each. So now we have to do, just like with shooting, we work out what the, if there's going to be any permanent losses. Both units have had 1 hit. We'll go through the Parliamentarians first. So for the horse, it's just 5, because that's their VBU, minus 1, because that's their damage. Their critical number is 4, so they have to roll under a 4 to not take any permanent losses, and they have, so they're fine. For the Royalists, their VBU is 6. They have 1, which takes them down to 5, but they have the general attach, which is always a +1, so back up to 6. So as long as they don't roll a 6 is always a failure. Oh, and they've rolled a 6, so they take 1 permanent loss. They're also disordered, so yeah, that disorder remains, and they take a permanent loss for their efforts. So as it stands at the moment, the Royalists have lost the melee because they've taken 1 more permanent loss than their opponent. However, that loss is because they actually failed their cohesion test. Now, they have a roll of destiny, and they can use that. And if they re-roll and they get anything other than a 6, they will not lose the permanent loss due to the melee, but rather accumulated disorder. So they'll use that roll of destiny now, because the last thing they want to do is lose that melee, because it also has an effect that because they failed the cohesion test by rolling a 6, the general could be imperiled as well. So they anything other than a 6, okay, and so they've passed. Okay, so they still have the permanent loss, but that's due to accumulated disorder, not a loss in melee. Yeah, these rolls of destiny are pretty good value for 5 points, and you'd be crazy not to get them for your army. So now we'll simply move up this other unit of Rupert's cavalry. So they'll move up their 2BU, and so up they come. And that will be the final movement and final actions for turn 3. The parliamentarians are now going to attempt at the start of turn 4 to activate this command here. The royalists are going to attempt to activate the opposite number. It's a fairly critical situation now over here. So Parliament is black. Both are expert generals. Okay, so at this stage, the royalists have it. Did I say Parliament is black? Parliament, the royalists are black. They've been black all game. So, okay. So, he's going to attempt to re-roll one of his dice. He's going to attempt to re-roll the 3, and it's gone. Okay, so the royals have the initiative. So, with that in mind, the first thing they're going to do is they're going to try and reorder the King's Lifeguard. So, they're Class B, and they've failed. Okay, so these guys are currently disordered. They failed their rally. This is not a good situation for them. So they're going to, the general is attached, and he's going to attempt to force the rally. He's an expert, so he has 3 dice, and he only needs to pass on one of them. So he needs a 4+ on one of these dice, and he gets it. Okay, so they've reordered. As a consequence, however, they can't do anything else this turn. They're not moving, they've rallied, so that doesn't trigger any kind of reaction. Rallying doesn't trigger reaction. So with that in mind, the next thing they're going to do is they're going to activate this command over here. And they will advance on these musketeers in the built-up area because they want to screen the lifeguard to a degree. Okay, so the musketeers now want to attempt opportunity fire because these trotters have moved up towards them. It's a -1 if the unit is disordered. They're not. And it's a -1 if the opportunity fire is not a response to shooting. They're not shooting, they've just ridden up towards them. So they are Class B, so they would normally pass on a 4+. They need a 5+ to use opportunity fire. And they've rolled a 1, so that's a fail. Now, there's no consequences for failing the discipline test. They don't go disordered. They just haven't failed to be able to, they've just failed to seize the opportunity to provide opportunity fire. The next thing that will happen is, for the royalists, is they're just going to pass. They're not going to advance anyone else. So basically, they've forced rallied this unit and they've moved this one up. Okay, so now we're going to roll to see which next command is going to activate. The royalists are going to attempt to activate Rupert's command, and the parliamentarians are going to attempt to activate this command again. So the parliamentarians first. They've rolled 5. Rupert is going to roll a... Okay, Rupert is a +4. The parliamentarians are going to re-roll both of these, and they're now up to 8 + 3. 7 + 4, it's a tie. Okay, Rupert has lost the roll, so these guys, oh, he could roll this one again and hope for a 6, but that would still just be a tie. Well, close but no cigar. So it's 6 plays 8, 6 + 4 is 10, and 8 + is 11. So the parliamentarians have the initiative. So the first thing they're going to do is they're going to give fire here. Musketeers, their VBU is 4. They're firing, it might be point blank now. Yep, it's point blank fire, so it's going to be 4 + 2 is 6. They're trained shooters, so they'll re-roll 1s and 2s. So they've got 1 hit, a grand total of 1 hit. So their VBU is 6. It's -1 for the hit. So that's 5. They've got to roll 5 or less, and they've rolled 2. So they just simply take disorder from the fire. Okay, so we're now up to Rupert's command. they activated both the Dragoons and the Musketeers. The Parliamentarian Musketeers tried to get an opportunity shot in, but it failed. Just doesn't mean he gets to shoot and reply. The net result of all this fire was on one casualty on the Musketeers due to accumulated disorder. So their DBU is now down to 2 after taking 2 casualties. But now we're into this cavalry fight. Okay, so for the cavalry fight, what we have is the Royalists. Let's start with Rupert. He normally has a VBU of 6, but it's down to 5. No impetus bonus because it's an ongoing melee. So they're at 5. They have a general attached. That goes up to 6, but they're disordered, so they back down to 5. The Parliamentarians, they have a VBU of 5. They're disordered. They lose 1, but they do have mass, so they add 2. So it's 6v5. The Royalists being the black dice. No one got hits at all there. So no hits on anyone. There's no dice to be re-rolled. So we are in a situation where it's they just stick. They continue to fight.
The next command that was activated was the Parliamentarians in the centre. The gun's still not firing. Nothing's in range. The pike and shot unit here advanced 1. Triggered opportunity fire from the Royalist gun, but it failed to pass the discipline test, so it couldn't engage. It then advanced forward another turn, but failed the discipline test and has become disordered. The Musketeers in the cultivated field there attempted to engage, failed their discipline test, so they are not firing on these chaps. Okay, so the next command to be activated is the Parliamentarians on the right. The Musketeers have retired. They were getting the worst of it. Their VBU is at base is at half of what they started at, so they're pretty much in a bad way. So they're retired. Their movement could have triggered opportunity fire from the Royalist troops, but they failed to get the requisite passes. So they've pulled back. Because they've retired, they automatically disorder. So they've got disorder on them there, but it didn't cause... You can't gain losses for disorder due to movement. So that only leaves now, apart from the cuirassiers, the Ritters. So the Ritters are going to now continue their melee with Rupert's cavalry in this area here. So let's get into that. So it's essentially exactly the same as before. It's 5 dice versus 6. Royalists are black. Parliamentarians are white. Okay, so 1 hit. 1 hit. No double 5s for either side. A single 5. Okay, so 1 hit each. So now we have to do the cohesion test. So the critical number for Rupert's horse is 5. So they need to get a 5 or less. And a 1 is a pass. And the critical number is 4 for the Parliamentarians. The difference being Rupert's presence and 1 they've passed as well. They both, however, took a hit, so they both will take a casualty due to accumulated disorder. And they will continue to fight. That just leaves the cuirassiers to activate for the Parliamentarians on the right. Okay, so in the centre command, when they were activated, what we have is the light gun fired upon the pike and shot to their front. They needed a 6 to hit, and they weren't able to get that. But the gun on the left, the artillery B, they fired. They did get a single hit on the pike and shot over here. And they passed their cohesion test, but because they had a hit and they were already disordered, they lose 1 VBU due to accumulated disorder. As for the movement, the pike and the shot in the centre, they moved 1 VBU forward. The
Royalist foot lifeguard, they again failed their reorder discipline test. So they did a forced rally and they passed that, but they obviously cannot move. The Midland Pike units failed their discipline test, so they just moved forward once in disorder. And that ends turn 4. Oh, and of course, the cuirassiers, they moved to their right to create an avenue for those musketeers to withdraw. Okay, so start turn 5, and Rupert's command has the initiative. Initially, the first thing that's happening is the musketeers with the attached regimental artillery have crossed through the hedge line. Now the musketeers for Parliament are going to attempt to get an opportunity shot at them. So to have the opportunity fire, they have to do a discipline test. Their morale value B, so that's a 4+, but it's a -1 because the unit is disordered, and also another -1 because they're responding to something other than fire. So they need a 6 to be able to opportunity fire. They've rolled a 2, so that's not successful. For their part, they've crossed the hedge, so they're going to be disordered. So the musketeers, for their part, they've crossed the hedge, so they've moved 1. So that's -1, -2 for the disorder, all up. So it's -1 for the move, -1 for the disorder. The VBU is 4, attached artillery 5, 5 -2, that's 3 dice. They are firing at short range, so they gain 1. So it's 4 dice, hitting 6s and double 5s. So there's 1 hit. They are well trained, so they re-roll their 1s and 2s. Okay, so 1 hit. Their VBU is down to 2. They have a hit, so it's down to 1, but it's from short range musketry, so it's back up to 2. So the critical roll is 2, so they need 2 or less. That's cocked. And they've rolled a 1, so they've passed. But they have taken a hit. They've already disordered, so that's going to take them down to VBU 1. So they're in the hurt locker. We'll now go on with this mounted combat here. It's Royalists at 4 dice. VBU is down to 4. They have disorder down to 3. They have a general attached back up to 4. And these guys here, VBU 5, 1 loss takes them down to 4. Disorder down to 3. 2 for the mass 5. So it's 4v5. Royalists are black. The Royals have got 1 hit because they got a double 5, and the Parliamentarians have none. Okay, so the Parliamentarians, their critical number is VBU 4 plus a hit takes it down to 3. So the VBU is 3. Sorry, the critical number is 3, and they've rolled 6, which means they're 3 over. They would take 3 losses. They have a roll of destiny, so they're going to use that now, and they pass. So they take no hits, but they do take. Well, they have received a hit, so they're going to lose a casualty due to accumulated disorder. And that will conclude Rupert's activations. He doesn't want to move the Dragoons, and he doesn't want to move the other regiment of Cavaliers. So now, for the Parliamentarians, they're going to attempt to activate their command on the right. For the Royalists, they're going to attempt to activate their command on their right, which is King Charles's command. Okay, so the command on the right is activated. It all seems to be happening here at the moment. Okay, so the parliamentarians general on this flank, Sir James Ramsay, he's going to join the Ritters and try to tip the scales their way. As a consequence of that, it's now the Royalists have 5 dice. The Royalists have 4 dice, and the parliamentarians under Ramsay have 5 dice. Mano a mano, Rupert and Ramsay and their cavalry having at each other. The parliamentarians are the white dice. Okay, so the parliamentarians get 1 hit, and there are no hits at all for the Royalist cavalry. They're definitely going to lose 1 because they've had a hit, but now it's a matter of seeing if they can pass the cohesion test. So their BUA, the BU is 4, the generals attached is 5. The BU is 4. They've suffered 1, that takes them down to 3. So the critical number is 3. And they've rolled a 1, so they pass. So they've passed the critical hit, but they have taken another loss due to accumulated disorder. Him pitching in is obviously helping out immensely. Next thing they're going to do, these guys here, they're going to attempt to withdraw. Now, because they're going to attempt to move, that will trigger a possible reaction from these guys. So they're disordered, -1, and they're reacting to something other than a charge. Other than being shot at. So it's a -2. So they're going to need a 6 to be able to react. And they have it. So they can react. So they're going to react. Their VBU is 4. Artillery 5. Close range an additional... it's not close range now. It's long range, so it's an additional 1. But they're disordered, so they lose 1. 5 dice. Hitting on 6 and double 5. Nothing. They are well-trained shooters, however, so they get to re-roll 3 of their dice. There is a 5 there. They still might pull this off. They do. There's a 6. So that will cause a disorder. No matter what these guys do, they can't save that. So that will destroy them. So they are now gone. Their VBU is reduced to 0. So that's the first unit wiped out. That does create a situation, however, for these cuirassiers, and they are going to attempt to charge. So they're going to do their first move, which will get them to this point here. Wheel and forward. Now that does bring them into musket range of these chaps, so they could do opportunity fire, and so they'll test to see if they can do that. The Dragoons need a 5+ to do their opportunity fire. 6, they get it, so they can now shoot. So the Dragoons have a VBU of 5. They're not disordered or anything like that, so it's 5. +1 for shooting at short range, and then a -1 because they're shooting at cuirassiers. Wow, 2 hits. Okay, so the cuirassiers have a VBU of 6. 2 hits is a -2, so it's 4. So the critical number is 4. So they have to roll a 4. 4 or less is what they want. And they've rolled a 2, so that's fine, but they are disordered. So that will make them a little ragged. Now, they are classed as slow, so that means they have to pass a discipline test to prevent going disordered. But they're already disordered, so we're not going to bother with that. They are in range, so they will go forward. and they will, as they approach, they will receive, they might receive defensive fire from these guys. So now we have to test for the defensive fire from the musketeers. Now, actually, they can't attempt any reactionary fire because they reacted to the musketeers pulling back, and you can only do a react once per phase. So they've already done it in this phase, so they can't do it again. So now we just go straight into the melee. And this will probably be rather grim for these poor chaps, I'm suspecting. Okay, so the VBU for the cuirassiers is 6, and they have an impetus bonus of 2. They do have pistols, so they're going to fire point blank with their 3 pistols as they go in. Single 5, a 3, and a 1, so that's nothing, so no effect from the point blank pistol fire. So they have 6 plus 2 is 8. They are disordered, so they drop 1. So they've got 7. The musketeers are VBU 4, but they're disordered, so that drops them down to 3. Nothing else. So the cuirassiers, they've rolled a 6 and a single 5. That's nothing, so 1 hit. And the royalists, nothing. So they got no hits at all on the cuirassiers. Okay, so for these chaps here, their critical number is going to be 4 with 1 hit. That's a -1, and I think the sort of plays into it. Their critical number is 2. And they've rolled a 2, so they pass. They simply have a disorder and a second disorder, so they just have the 1 casualty. So now we're going to attempt to activate the units on this flank. Black is the royalists. They're both expert generals. Ooh. The royalists are going to roll both of theirs to hope to get better. So they've tied. That means that the parliamentarians will re-roll the 3, and they've got a 3, so it's tied. So it's tied. There's nothing different. There's no command structure difference. So we re-roll. We completely re-roll our dice. The royalists will re-roll their 2 dice, and this time the parliamentarians have the initiative. Okay, so the parliamentarians declare they're going to fire. The royalists, by contrast, they're going to attempt to do an opportunity charge onto these chaps. Okay, so to do an opportunity charge, their discipline is class B, so it's they're going to need a 6+ basically to be able to pull it off. And they've rolled a 2, so they can't do the opportunity charge. So they're just going to have to take it on the chin. Okay, so they've got a VBU of 4. That's it, just straight 4. So yeah, if you plus 2 for short range, so that's a grand total of 6 dice. Okay, so they've got 2 2s that they can re-roll, and all they managed to get was a single 5. So no hits at all, because they've literally dodged several bullets. Okay, so they will. Well, that's what they're going to do. They don't want to charge the King's Lifeguard. It's pretty narrow to get in there. It'll only be 1 unit at a time, and why risk it for the biscuit, considering they're defending? So now we move on to rolling for their central command. So the parliamentarians are going to try to activate their centre command, whilst the royalists will attempt to activate their central command. Okay, so the royalists, their reliable general, they've got a total of 8, plus 2 is 10. They're going to re-roll the 1. So 7 plus 3 is also 10. So it's a draw. So we completely re-roll again. Okay. This time the Royalists, the Parliamentarians win. There's no way. I mean, he's a reliable, so he can't re-roll. And why would you if you were a Parliamentarian? So now the Central Command will activate for the Parliamentarians. So the first thing they're going to do is try to reorder these guys. They're morale class B, so they need a 4+, and they've rolled a 3, so they have not rallied. Okay, so the rallies are done. That's the first thing you always do. Now the artillery is going to fire. Both of them can fire at this pike and shot unit here because they're within 4 BU, which is long range. So their VBU is 1 and 1. Long range, they get an additional 1, so it's 2 and 2. So this gun here first shooting. A single 5 is nothing. This gun here, and nothing. So the guns are fired and achieved no hits. Okay, the pike and shot are not going to do anything back here at this stage of the game. And so now it's over to the Royalists, and they'll activate their Central Command. Okay, yes, we're just rolling to see if I can get a double 1 or a double 6. Okay, so let's move those guys. Okay, so the Cornish Pike, both of these units have moved forward 1 move. The light gun moved up once. The King's Life Guard of foot, they moved once. They attempted to move a second time. They did move a second time, but they failed the decimal test, so they've gone into disorder. The medium gun has not moved at all. The Midlands Pike units, they rallied. Well, one of them did. They rallied in advance 1 move. They did not rally, but they advanced moved 1 move disordered. So that's the Centre Command done, except for the shooting. So their artillery will shoot. And we'll start with this gun over here, because that pike and shot is looking pretty tasty. So it's short range, so 3 dice, 1 for the VBU and 2 for the range. 3 dice, nothing. So they fired and achieved absolutely nothing with that. So now the King's Life Guard, they can actually shoot at these pike and shot here. So their VBU is 6, but they have a shooting modifier of -2 because of the pike, obviously, so that's 4. They're disordered down to 3, but they are at short range. So they get 1, so that takes them to 4. So 4, and it's first fire, so they get re-roll their misses. One hit. Okay, so 1 hit. So they've got a VBU of 6, down to 2 for the total of hits. So that's 4, disordered 3. So their critical number is 3. Short range fire back up to 4. So the critical number is 4. And they've rolled a 4. So they don't take any losses from, permanent losses from the fire, but that is their second disorder. So they are up to another hit on them. Okay, that brings us to our final command for turn 5 to activate, which is King Charles's command. Oh, they almost went, he almost became, he almost rolled a double 1. So they keep dodging bullets here. Okay, rallying. First thing we're going to attempt to do is rally these guys. So it's 4+. Okay, so now the musketeers in here will fire at them. It'll be their first fire. It's at short range. So the VBU is 4 + 1, and they for short range, and they will re-roll any misses. Well, they all missed, so they re-roll them all again. Oh, nothing. That is atrocious shooting from those guys, and they've wasted their first fire. Well, you get that on the big
So
drive.
now we're up to turn 6.
And let's see which command activates first. The Royalists will attempt to activate their central command, and the Parliamentarians will also attempt to activate their central command. Okay, so the Parliamentarians have it because command rating 2, command rating 3, they can't re-roll. So the central command will activate for the Parliamentarians. The first thing that has to happen is rallies. These guys will attempt to rally. They're class B, so 4+. They fail. They just can't get their act together there. Okay, these fellas are going to charge because they're really in between a rock and a hard place. So to that end, this is going to invite a chance for opportunity fire from these 2 units here and defensive fire from these guys. So first of all, the opportunity fire from these guys, it's a -1, so they're class B, which means normally they roll a 4+. This time they're going to be a 5+. They do have iron officers, so they can re-roll fails. So they can re-roll that as long as it's not a 1, and they get it. So opportunity fire from these chaps. So their BBU is 6, -2 is 4, and +1 for range. So that's 5. That's 1 hit. And that is all they get. So they got a hit on those guys. So their BBU was 6, it's now down to 4. They're disordered 3 and a hit 2. The critical number is 2. Whoa. They're going to use their roll of destiny for that, because that would be pretty devastating. And it hasn't helped them. Critical number is 2, so that's another 3 hits. So that is really going to hurt them badly. Now the gun is going to attempt opportunity fire. They need a 5+. They've got it. So, boom. That is 1 hit there. Okay, now the BBU is down to 1. Because it's normally 6. They've got 5 down to 1. They need a 1 to pass. Anything else will wipe them out, and they're gone. So as soon as they've stepped off, they've got shot to pieces. So this is another unit for the Parliamentarians that are no more. So now these guns will fire. These one at the King's Lifeguard, 2 dice. Nothing there. These guns firing at this Cornish Pike unit. They've got a hit. Okay. Their VBU is 6. They're in good order. Anything but a 6, and they pass. And they pass. No worries. But they are disordered by the fire from the gun. Nothing else. The Parliamentarian Central Command they want to activate. So now they will attempt to activate the right. And it just so happens that Rupert will also attempt to activate on that side as well. So it's a +1 difference essentially for Rupert over Ramsay. Okay, so they've tied so far. They'll both re-roll their 1s, and the Parliamentarians have the initiative. So Ramsay's going to activate this melee here, and it's 5 for the Parliamentarians, 3 for Rupert. Well, one hit from the Royalists and no hits from the Parliamentarians. So the critical number for the Ritters, the Parliamentarian horse, is they're normally 5, but they have the VBUs down to 3 now because of the casualties, but they've just taken another one for the hit, so that takes them down to 2. They're disordered down to 1, but they have a general attached, so that brings them back up to 2. So the critical number is 2. Oh dear, they've rolled a 6. Well, they have their last roll of destiny. They're throwing it in. Okay, they're 2. So they're fine. They just take another hit because of the accumulated disorder. And now we have the fight here. Then their VBU was 4, it's down to 3, disordered down to 2. 6, disordered down to 5. 2 plays 5. We'll re-roll that one and we'll re-roll that one. So far. Okay, that's pretty devastating. That's 2 hits on these guys and no hits on the Cuirasses, unsurprisingly. So their VBU is 4, 1 hit is down to 3. So the VBU, the critical number is 3. They've just taken a hit, so it takes them down to 2, disordered down to 1. So their critical number is 1. They need to roll 1 or less. And they've rolled a 1. Well, they're fighting tenaciously. But they do take another hit because of the accumulated disorder. So they're hanging in there. It's almost like they know that if they can just hold on, things might go well for them. Okay, the only commands left to activate for the Parliamentarians are the one on their left, Beaufort's command. So King Charles is going to try to activate as well. Okay. Oop, that was 7. They're going to roll both to see if they can beat Charlie. They can't. All right. King Charles has the initiative this time. So the first thing they're going to do is they're going to attempt to rally here. And they do not. Now King Charles could force it, and I think he will. So he's going to try to force the rally. 4 plus. Yes, because they're B class, so they rally. Charles doesn't want to do anything else over here at this stage. So now this command will attempt to activate, and Rupert's command will attempt to activate. Rupert is black. Okay, they're going to roll both of these. Okay. Rupert is going to... That is a tie. I'll roll again. He'll re-roll the 2. Oh, it only got worse. Rupert will re-roll both, and that's enough for Rupert to get the initiative. Okay, so we're going to do this melee. It is 4-3 in regards to dice in favour of the Parliamentarians. Rupert's boys are the black dice. No hits. No hits. So they're just grinding on. Nobody won, nobody lost. So it's just a draw. So that's just going to carry on into the next phase. Over here, the Dragoons are going to have to pitch in and help. So they're going to declare a charge out of here and into the the cuirassiers. Okay, so what we do have here is a multiple unit melee. The unit that is more to the front of the fighting unit, that is the main melee unit. So the musketeers are still classed as the main unit. They will contribute 1 dice. The cuirassiers are still fighting with 5. The dragoons are VBU 5, impetus 1, so that's 6. It's halved because they're a supporting unit, so they contribute 3. So the grand total will be 4 versus 5. So no hits at all from the cuirassiers, and no hits from the dragoons and musketeers. And that's all she wrote in there. The dragoons don't get the impetus because they're foot charging mounted, but you're still 5 round up is still 3, so it doesn't make any difference. But yes, they don't get the impetus bonus. Nothing. Just to note, this is not a flank charge. It's what they class as a side charge. So they've come in from, they weren't behind the extended a line that extends along the front. They weren't behind that when they went in. They were actually more to the front of the cuirassiers. So when they've come in, they actually don't get a flank charge. It's a side charge, and for the purpose of melees, it's still classed as if they're in a frontal melee contact. Okay, there's only 2 commands now that haven't activated so far, and that is the British command in the British, they're all British, the Royalist command in the centre and the Parliamentarian on the left. That's a 6 each, therefore the Parliamentarians on the left have the initiative. Okay, so these guys have declared they're going to shoot. These guys are going to declare they're going to launch an opportunity charge because they're being shot at. So they need a 6 to pass. They've rolled a 2, so they don't get an opportunity charge. They're just going to have to take it on the chin. It's VBU 4. +2 for short or point blank range. Well-trained shooters, re-rolling 1s and 2s. Man, their shooting is atrocious. They've got absolutely nothing out of that. Okay, other than that, he doesn't want to do anything else. The Royalist Centre command to activate. So we just got to roll to see if they roll a double 1 or a double 6. Okay, nothing like that. All right. So to that end, they're just going to basically advance along here and advance these guys as well. The first thing any unit must do is rallies. So we're going to attempt to rally these chaps here first. They're Class B, so they rally on a 4+. Again, no luck. He's going to force the rally, so they won't be able to do anything else. Yeah, these King's Lifeguard are absolutely atrocious for discipline. They just can't get their... They always fall into disorder. They're just shocking. This unit here, again, they need a 4+. They rally. All right. Well done, chaps. Okay, and now there'll be a general advance here. These Cornish Pike, they have to rally as well, but they're Class A, so a 3+ for them. They've rallied, and then they'll move up. Okay, so that just now leaves some shooting. This gun will fire at this horse. It's a VBU 1 +1 for range. Nothing. And then over here, this gun will shoot 1 dice at nothing. So the artillery fire has been pretty, from the Royalist side of the house, has been pretty ordinary. These guys could give their first fire as they advance. At the same time, the these two units here could also give their first fire, because they're in a situation now where they're close enough that they can fire, and they could do opportunity fire if they want. So what's going to happen is the royalists, they're going to fire, because what the plan is they'll fire, and then because they're within 2 BU, they'll probably charge next turn and just try to go in. They're Class A, they'll probably make it. So okay, let's go with that. So they're going to fire. Okay, so their VBU is 6. They have a shooting modifier of -2 because of the pikes, so that goes down to 4. They have moved once, so that goes down to 3. So 3 and 3, they will shoot at them. These guys will shoot at these guys. These guys first. First fire, they re-roll their misses, including single 5s. So nothing from them. Here, there's a 6. Okay, so 1 hit on these guys. Now these are like recruits, so their VBU is 5, and they have a hit. So normally it's 5, it's down to 4, so their critical number is 4. Okay, they've rolled a 6. They have no rolls of destiny left, so that means that they will take 2 hits, because that is 2 more than the critical number. So they have, so that was worth the effort. So they've got 2 hits on them. So their VBU has dropped down from 5 down to only 3. So Rupert is going to attempt to activate in the beginning for this first phase of turn 7, and Balfour is going to activate for the parliamentarians on the parliamentarian left. So opposing left flanks. Okay, I don't think there's any chance. Yeah. Okay, Rupert's got it this time with a roll like that. It's hard to see how he wouldn't. Okay, so Rupert is going to activate. With Rupert himself, it's 3 dice versus 4 dice. The advantage being with the parliamentarians. And it's 1 hit each. Okay. They've both taken 1 hit. The critical number for these guys is 1. For Rupert, it's 2. Might as well just roll their dice together. And they've both rolled 1s, so neither of them take a hit. But they do have ongoing disorder, so that means that they'll both take 1 step loss each. Their VBU will be down to 1, and his VBU will be down to 2. Now we have this ongoing melee here. It's 5 dice for the cuirassiers, 4 dice for the for the royalists. Okay, 1 hit and 1 hit. I'll re-roll that 1. Okay, that's nothing, and there's nothing else there. So it's 1 hit each. Now we just do the cohesion test. Their critical number, it's normally 6, but they've 1 for the casualty and 1 for the disorder, so it's 4. Their critical number is 4. They're past it, no problem. He needs a 1. That's the only thing that will save him from taking a hit. No, and that will blow him away, so they're gone. Okay, so because the Ridders or Cuirassiers have destroyed the enemy to the front, they automatically, well, they don't automatically, they can choose to pursue 1 move to the front, which they've done, which will bring them into contact, side contact with this unit here in melee with these guys. So we will fight another melee in here with these guys adding half their VBU rounded up. By contrast, they retreat 1 BU, so they've retreated back into the woods. Okay, so things suddenly have got much more grim for poor Rupert. 3 for him, and 3 for these guys as well. But these guys are going to add 4. Okay. Okay, so that's an interesting turn up. Most definitely. Unbelievably, Rupert has won that. So Rupert has taken 1 hit, and these guys, because they're the main fighting unit, these are a supporting unit, these guys have taken 2. The critical number for these guys is their VBU is 1. They have a general attached that goes back up to 2. But they have 2 hits and they're disordered, so their critical number is 1. They can't do any better than that. For Rupert, it's going to be 2. His VBU is 3, is disordered down to 2, but there's a general attached back up. Well, hang on. The VBU is 3, general attached 4, disordered down to 3, and the hit 2. So his VBU, his critical number, sorry, will be 2. So we'll roll the dice now, corresponding obviously by colour. Okay, that exceeds his by 2, and exceeds his by 3. That means he will take 2 hits, which will take his him up to a grand total of 5, which just leaves him with 1 VBU. But for these guys, 7, that's going to wipe them out. So they'll be destroyed. They must pursue because they're gallopers, and these guys will bounce off. Now we must roll for the general. Just because the unit's wiped out doesn't mean the general's gone. So we have to roll for him. 2, 1, 2, 3, no effect. So he survives, and he just will move off to one side. And these guys, we roll to see how far they pursue. They pursue 2 BU, so they will go 20 centimeters forward. We have the dice to see how far they go. They're slow mounted. 3 for slow mounted is 2 BU. So they'll go back 20 centimeters as well. So after all that, that just leaves this unit in Rupert's command, and they will advance. So the 2nd Cavalry unit has moved up, and they're now just behind Rupert's leading cavalry unit. Ramsay's command is now demoralised. That means that this unit here, the only unit that's left in his command, needs to do a discipline test. They need a 4+ to stay on the battlefield, otherwise they're immediately eliminated. 1, so they're gone. So Ramsay's command is now completely wiped out. So with Rupert's command activated, Ramsay's command destroyed, we now have to roll for the next commands to activate. The Royalists want to activate in the centre, as do the Parliamentarians, so we'll roll for that now. Whoa, okay, so the Parliamentarian commander has gone from reliable to expert. He's gone up a level. I can't see, well, he's expert, so he can re-roll. He gave it a red hot shove, but the Parliamentarian commander, obviously inspired by the deeds of Rupert's command on the right, on his left, I should say, has gone up to expert. So now we activate the Royalist Central Command. Yes, there are no units in that command to rally, so it's all just going to be movement. This gun will fire first. So 1 dice at this unit. No hit. And now they're going to move into combat. Now, that will trigger a whole series of possible reactions from the 2 pike and shot units, and opportunity fire from these guns. So we're going to do that first, and then once we get into the melee, we'll resolve the melee. So we're going to get opportunity fire from the gun, assuming they pass the discipline test, and then defensive fire from the pike and shot, assuming they pass their test. For the gun first, the morale class B, so normally they would pass on a 4+, but it's a -1 for opportunity fire, so it's a 5+. So he won't be firing. That leaves the 2 pike and shot units. Now for defensive fire, they get +2. So essentially for both of these, they're A class, they're C class. If they roll a 1, they fail. So this one here first, no, they can do defensive fire, and this one, they can do defensive fire. Okay, so he'll be firing after I've calculated. He fires with 6 dice. Him, due to his losses and his disorder, will be firing with only 2. 5 -2 is 3. -1 for disorder is 2. Okay, so here's 6 dice first. It's first fire, so he will re-roll his misses. There's 2 5s, re-rolling any, all misses. Okay, so 1 hit inflicted here. And his 2 dice, re-rolling misses. Okay, no hits at all. We now do the critical roll. This guy here, he can only fail if he rolls a 6. He's rolled a 4, so he's past that. Now we're testing for the second move. Okay, they're both A class. So this one here first, they'll only fail on a 1. The second unit can only fail on a 2. Okay, so these are Cornish Pike. They're classed as feared units. So they have 6 dice, plus 2 for their impetus, and this one gets 1 for the general, so 9 and 8. Over here, these are veteran pikemen, so they get 6. These are freshly raised pikemen. They would normally have 5, but they lose 2 because of the hits, so they're down to 3. Because the Cornish units are feared, they also lose, the parliamentarians will lose 1 dice per unit. Okay, so we'll do this unit first. Okay, 6, 6, wow, lots of 6s. That is 3 hits. This unit here. 2 6s, only a single 5, unfortunately, not a double 5. So 2 hits inflicted by them, and 3 hits inflicted by these guys here. In defense, 1 hit, because they rolled a double 5. And this unit here, no hits, a single 5 and a 4. Okay. Okay, so he's got 1 hit on him, which means with the general, all that, his critical number's like 7, but a 6 is always a fail. So these guys here first. Okay, so they've failed, so they will take a hit and become disordered. Their critical number is 3. They're looking for 3 or less, and they've rolled a 5. So they've taken 2 hits. That just leaves this unit. They've got a critical number of 1, so they're in a real bad state. 3, so they take another 2 hits. And because they lost the melee, they have to move back 1 BU, which is 10. And I think we're going to wrap it up there. The Royalists have been successful on their left flank. They've completely broken 1 command there, and they're really starting to hammer through here. They're only 2 VBU off breaking, and they've got a VBU of 4 now, as opposed to 6, versus these waves of pikemen coming through. But anyway, it's been a good game. That's Baroque. I'll be interested to hear what you think of it. So we're just going to wrap it up there. If you've enjoyed what you've seen, please like, share and subscribe. Tell a friend. And until next time, I'll catch you on the next one. Yibakway.